Hello and welcome in to the Orlando Drummer Podcast. This is episode 26. I know for those watching on YouTube, this is not your normal view here. I'm over at my other podcast set from All In with Adam, so apologies for the change in scenery for this particular episode. It was just a little easier to record this episode with Casey. So Casey Cooper and I have been friends for a very long time. We met back in probably 2015, maybe 2014, and we did a recording project at my old studio here in Orlando. That was, what did we record? Rachel Platten's Fight Song and I Can't Feel My Face by The Weeknd. Those were the two pop songs that were on the radio at the time. But that was a really fun recording project, and you can find those videos way back on his YouTube channel. But ever since then, him and I have found a reason to get together at least once or twice a year, whether it's on drum projects or just to hang out. I was actually fortunate enough to see him and his wife Hannah at my wedding just a couple months ago. So it was cool to see him again, this soon. So Casey came over about a week ago, and we said, hey, let's knock out a drum podcast. So we talked about all sorts of things in this interview, but I wanted to let you know that the interview, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple, it's only a portion of the interview. The entire uncut podcast between Casey and I is only available on orlandodrummer.com in the members area of that website. If you're unfamiliar with orlandodrummer.com, it's an online education platform or an online drum school, very much in the style of Netflix. You can find hundreds and hundreds of drum lessons. It's got the world's largest collection of drumless play-alongs, and there's tons of other interviews and podcasts just like the one that you're about to hear today. We've got drummers like Charlie Ingen from Five Finger Death Punch. We've got Luke Holland, Guitar Center drum-off champ, Juan Carlito Mendoza. A whole bunch of good buddies of mine have done this over the years. So there's tons more interviews just like this one in the members area of orlandodrummer.com. There's a link in the description where you can save 25% off of your first 2 months membership to the website. So I'd love to see you guys there. All right, here is the interview with Casey. Enjoy, guys. All right, welcome in, everybody. Adam here, the Orlando Drummer, and maybe a couple of you have heard of this young man sitting next to me.
Very few, though.
Casey Cooper, how you doing, brother?
Good. Man, it's exciting to be here. It's exciting to be in your finished studio. Because I saw it before it was finished. I saw the process, and
What did it look like when you were here last time? I can't remember how far in the construction we were.
I'm pretty sure you just had the outer layer of drywall up, or maybe you had just finished the inner layer, but it was definitely like just drywall. Yeah. And I mean, it was dark in here. You couldn't see anything. There were no drums. I think maybe you had a few drums in like a storage area or something, but it was one of those things where unless you have vision, it didn't look like it was going to be that great yet.
Not impressive at all. Yeah. Well, it was cool because I remember I got to see your studio when it was in construction mode, which is also really, really cool because seeing how, like you said, you have to have a vision for what a studio could look like to even appreciate it. Otherwise, it's just studs and insulation and
dirt. Dirty everywhere.
Do you ever want to build another studio again after doing that?
Oh man, I love the process.
Yeah.
It was a ton of work, but I love the process. I love the idea behind designing, behind building. I'm into all the construction techniques and stuff. So I would build another one, but I think for the sake of my family, I would not build another one in my house. Like as part of my home,
Sure.
Like, it was just too many waking up at 3 a.m. and trying to do stuff while they're sleeping, and then trying to like also juggle everything. It's
sure.
my wife has told me, she's like, if we're gonna get a new house, like we're not building another studio.
I hear you, man. I joke with Kelly that like I feel like it took a year off my life. Like you getting so physically beat up all the time. The amount of like bumps and bruises and scratches, and like your hands are always torn up, and you realize that being a drummer is a relatively safe career path. Like I don't have to worry about getting injured on any given day. And being in construction world, man, I didn't like that. Just always something sore, busted, or tweaked, or
The crossover between being a drummer and doing your own construction work is, will I have all my fingers to continue being a drummer?
Exactly, man. Yeah. Oh, it's brutal, man. Well, dude, there's a whole bunch of directions we could go with a podcast like this, but with somebody like you, I love talking about the online world because for all of the drummers that you and I know, not all of them are as YouTube centered or Instagram centered or So I'm curious, like, just to get an update from you on what has happened in the online drum world in the last few years, because it's certainly, I don't know, it's different than it was even 3 years ago, But like, what kind of stuff are you seeing in the online world?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is that YouTube is no longer what YouTube used to be. You know? I mean, it's you can't just put up a video and like, even if it's a video people are going to like, even if you have a following, you can't just put up a video and be like, oh, well, you know, I have 2.5 million subscribers, so people are going to watch it. Like, that's not how it works because of the algorithm. And, you know, the format of videos has just changed so much to where like, a drum cover, which used to be the bread and butter of just about every drummer on YouTube, at least to start, or, you know, there was so much behind it besides, you know, guys like yourself that focus more on the education side of things. It's no longer a format that's like a guaranteed success anymore. You know, you can't be like, oh man, I'm going to film an amazing drum cover of this specific song and it's going to get a lot of views. Like there's no guarantee of that. In fact, it almost like, especially my audience who grew up watching me play drum covers, they're always asking, you know, why don't you do more drum covers? Why don't you do more drum covers? And I'm like, because I spend hours on it. It doesn't generate any revenue for me. And then YouTube doesn't send it to all of you guys. So you don't even see it. And then you ask on the next video, why aren't you doing drum covers? I'm like, well, I did a drum cover, but you didn't get to see it because of the algorithm, you know? And it's like, I think that change really, I mean, for me now, I focus on content that is either educational or product related, where I'm trying to help people understand, you know, different products and different drums, but more so just entertainment. You know, like what videos can I create that are entertaining drum videos that are much longer than than a 4-minute drum cover. You know, like I need you to watch for 10 minutes for the video to actually get traction.
Yeah, I've experienced the same thing where it's like the views aren't free just because you have a bunch of subscribers. Like that doesn't guarantee, I say free, but like, the success of any given video is not guaranteed anymore. And it used to be, if you had subscribers, 90% of them were going to see it at least pop up in their feed. It was just a matter if they clicked it and how long they watched. And that's all gone now. And then that fixture of entertainment is a huge part of it now. I've always felt that TikTok played a big role in that because it, you know, Instagram sort of rode the line of being entertaining and educational. Like you could still get away with a lot of educational content on like Instagram, and YouTube, that always did well. But TikTok is the first one where people like to pretend that it's educational, but it's not. It's very short format entertaining videos only. And I feel like that's kind of colored the perspective of like a younger generation, right? Where they open these apps to be entertained. And now you're seeing things like, at least in the lesson world, like a drum lesson is also merged with like a vlog in a weird way. Like it's a lot of that sort of thing, which is interesting, man. It's hard. We've been doing this long enough where I feel like some of those content style pivots are difficult to make because it's like, oh, I'm not used to doing it that way. Like I did it this way for a really long time. Yeah, it's definitely frustrating. But so how do you balance that out? Because for me, you can still survey the drum world and say, well, here's what's going to get a bunch of views. But do you ever run into things where you have that ethical challenge of like, maybe this isn't what I really want to make just because it gets views? It's not necessarily like, you know, how much work do you do for views and views alone, right?
Yeah,
it's tough.
That's a huge like a battle because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you want your YouTube channel or whatever it is that you're doing to be successful and to, you know, push forward and open more doors, you want the views. But I mean, I 100%, most of the time I'm not doing it for fun anymore, you know, and that's the biggest disconnect. Because when I started, it was like, I just have fun. You know, I play drums to songs. I do whatever it is that I want to do. And people seem to relate well to that. And now I still have fun in the creation process. And I still enjoy, you know, I enjoy editing. I enjoy drumming. I enjoy all those different pieces. But I don't go downstairs and sit behind a drum set and play drums for fun anymore. You know, like there's so much conceptualization of like what it is exactly that needs to be created. And so instead of it being like, hey, you know, I just heard this fun song on the radio, I want to go play drums to it. It's like, that's not how it works. You know, it's like, okay, so this is the product that I'm going to showcase this time. And this is the idea that I want to teach. And this is the, you know, this is the concept that I think is going to get people to watch it for a while. And so I want to provide all of those things, but it's not that simple, and it certainly doesn't result in in me just having fun anymore.
Sure. You know? Every time, every day.
It's way too much of a business and not as much of a, like, you know, just having fun anymore.
Passion project, right? Yeah. I think some viewers like don't like hearing that necessarily, but at the same time, it's sort of, I do think this is the natural progression of like any career.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's awesome to have started like you and I with like a decade of fun. Like that's really cool because most people don't even get to experience that.
Exactly.
Truly loving every moment of your job all the time. And it's the same thing you would be doing even if you didn't get paid. Like how lucky to have experienced that at all. And then, you know, marriage, home ownership, kid, like that, it does really change like your connection to what it is that you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you have no expenses, basically, I mean, you're just a single guy, just you know, just skirting by. Like, it was way different for me then. Of course, now that I'm married, I have 2 kids, I have a house, I have a studio. Like, and in some ways, like, I always try and keep my expenses low, so I don't have to do a lot of work, so that I can have more fun and I can do more of the things that I want to do, and not just think about cash flow all the time. But you know, like you were talking about TikTok and Instagram and stuff, that's the big transition in my mind, is the attention span of people. You know, it went from like YouTube used to be like, oh, we'd watch at least a few minutes of a video, to now Instagram was like, we'd watch a minute of a video, and now TikTok is like sometimes like 15 seconds of a video and you're done. And so since the YouTube algorithm went in the opposite direction, where YouTube's like, we need videos that get people to watch for 45 minutes. And everybody's used to watching 15 seconds. Like, you really have to work hard to get someone to stick around for a long time in this day and age. And so it's been fun skirting that line and finding things that are entertaining and also will keep people around for a while.
Sure. Yeah, I think I worry sometimes for the younger generation. By that I mean like the 12, 13, 14-year-olds now who are just getting into drums.
Yeah.
And I worry that they're going to be so adequately entertained that something like a drum lesson, or let's just say like a master class, right, which, you know, very nerdy, like I worry that is going to be perceived as boring by a 12 or a 13-year-old, because they're used to like all of these silly, outrageous, playful kind of content styles. And so it's been weird waters for me to navigate, because I was never like the entertainer in the content world. I never tried to make videos like for fun. I did that a few times, but my style is way more like hardcore, high quality drum lesson education style, you know? I don't know. I worry that sometimes like there might be a 12 or 13-year-old who, even watching this conversation, might be too boring for them, right? That it's there's not enough happening. Like, they're not even playing drums. Like, you know, that you would have a whole generation of people who are effectively like their attention spans have gotten so short that any type of long format, thoughtful content is uninteresting to them. And I don't know. I worry about those kids, that generation. We're less connected to those people because we're a bit older now.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's one of the reasons that I like doing podcasts like this, because there's still a huge market for people who want long format, well thought out, articulated ideas, you know? It's weird, man. It's uncomfortable to be in a landscape that changes like that. We had a long run where it was very predictable. I'm sure you know about that. Like, you can guarantee a certain amount of views on a certain content style. It's like it's free, you know?
I mean, you always think that, I mean, especially now, I think, well, you know, there's these people that clicked follow and subscribe on purpose because they wanted to see my videos.
Yeah.
But now YouTube just doesn't send them the videos. It's kind of like,
they really don't.
It's like Facebook, where like you got a bunch of likes on a fan page, but now the only way to get it to more than like 100 people is to pay
to play.
And so it's like, unfortunately, that stretching into the YouTube world and restricting people's access to the content that they subscribe to actually want to see.
It truly is.
It's difficult.
Yeah. Fortunately, YouTube isn't quite pay to play level yet, but Facebook is. You know, I'm not here to just trash all the social media companies, but like they have really made it where it's like, you pay us money or we don't do anything for you. You know, it's tough. It's tough. Really tricky. Well, so all of that aside, what kind of projects do you have like going on now? Anything coming up in the future? Stuff you're working on? I'm
always working on the next like concept that I think will be enjoyable to people and you know, hopefully helpful to people. Like, I've really found myself transitioning from pure drum cover, which at the end of the day, like, hopefully it's inspiration to people. Hopefully it makes people want to play. I mean, I've never been the drummer that's like, oh man, he's just so good. Like, you know, he makes me like, I have so much to learn from him. More so, I've always been the drummer that's like, oh man, he's having so much fun. Like
Sure.
it makes me want to get behind a kit and play. And then, hopefully through what I do and showcasing and working with other drummers, I can point to guys that are better teachers like yourself, And so for me, the next chapter has always been creating content that showcased other musicians and that, working and doing collaborations and just kind of expanding the overall appreciation for the drum world, especially to the new age of people. But then past that, also like the content that I produce now, I try to just be helpful with it.
Sure.
Like there's entertainment to it, there's inspiration to it, but like, let me show you the new kit that I have. And that way, if you want to go get a drum set, you know what this one sounds like. And, here are the best, like, here's all the different cymbals in these different realms. Like, I kind of want to do a video where I compare side by side, dry cymbals and like the kind of like case sweet cymbals or dark cymbals or like, where it's just
Sure.
like because those kinds of videos, although they don't reach as many people, I think they're more helpful to the people that they do reach. Because if you're trying to figure out like what kind of cymbals do I really want, and I don't have the ability to go play these cymbals, if someone uses the same mics, the same drum set, the same setup and plays them, you actually have a decent opportunity to understand and hear what's going on. And so I've done a lot of work with Sweetwater, and I mean, of course, my other sponsors, Pearl and Zildjian, Vic Firth, those guys like showcasing different products. But it's just even going into the recording world with the studio and those realms of showcasing how to record drums. Like I find it a passion of mine to try and help people produce their own content. Because nowadays, whether or not you're trying to be famous or you're trying to like make money or whatever, I believe that having basically a video resume of yourself is a great thing to have.
Exactly.
Especially now that like tours are starting back up and people are going to start playing again. To have a quick video that shows your skills and shows how you do what you do, I think that's way more important than, numbers or anything like that on social media. If you want to be a drummer, just being like, hey, this is what I do,
Yeah, I've told people now it almost no matter what you want to do, with the exception of maybe like local lessons or local session work, if that was like your long-term goal, maybe that would be an exception. But for almost every other career path in the drum industry, I don't know that having zero content online is even optional at this point. Like you have to have something, even if it's just the quick YouTube video. And I've recommended even people that aren't interested in having a studio or buying cameras or mics, like you can rent all of that stuff. Like you can pay a local engineer and pay a videographer if you really don't know anything about it, just to have that content somewhere online to help you get that gig that you might be interested in, that sort of thing. But I'm with you too on I share that passion for wanting to help people make their own content because, and let me ask you this, how much of your progression in drumming itself, how much of that is linked to the amount of time that you filmed yourself? Like, aren't those linked really closely? Like the amount of time you've watched yourself play drums is probably close to how much time you've spent actually playing drums, which is weird. It's like constantly looking in the mirror right after you play, you get the immediate feedback that the video and the audio shows you. And that, to me, that's been crucial to like helping me develop the skill sets that I have now. I don't know what kind of drummer I would be if I didn't film and record myself, but it wouldn't be the same, Yeah,
I mean, there's no greater way to understand what it is you like and don't like about your playing than to be able to watch it back. I mean, and of course, you can also argue that there's no greater way to find out what other people like and don't like about your playing than to record yourself.
They will definitely tell you.
Yeah, of course, more so oftentimes the negativity will come across more than the positivity, because if you just like it, you're not necessarily guaranteed to say anything, but if you dislike it, you're very inclined to say that. And so there's definitely pros and cons to that, because of course there are situations where someone's being negative and they don't really know what they're talking about, but you can learn from actual constructive criticism and stuff. But for me, watching myself play, it's really evolved who I am as a player and what I like. But unfortunately, the way that I've evolved as a player isn't necessarily what people want on the internet.
Not always, right?
Like, I can't tell you how many times that I've done drum covers, and like when I actually do get behind a kit and I play a drum cover now, how much more just careful I am with it, because I realize like I don't always just want to be that guy that's like flailing my arms around and like playing too many notes. Like I want to be a good example to people of what, like, if you were going to go into a session or if you were going to play a show or something, like what might actually hit the record, what might actually make sense, and what is being respectful of the music. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that, and I've looked back at the drum cover and be like, that's one of my favorite drum covers, just because of how well crafted it is.
Yeah.
And all the comments are like, I miss old Casey. I miss the old Cooper drummer. Like, what happened to him where he's like, smashing away at stuff? And I'm like, and it kind of makes me think like, sometimes I go back to playing that way just because it makes people excited. Because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be the best drummer on the planet. I'm not actually recording for the record. I'm not doing anything that like really matters besides making people excited. So
yeah, but it's almost like an ethical problem in there too, because if you go so hard in either direction, like if you play everything like on the album, like you were getting paid to do it that way, I mean, yeah, there's an argument that that's boring sometimes, because it is a boring part of the drum industry. Sometimes it's a basic rock beat for 6 minutes, and that's kind of all that needed to be here. And then if you go in the entertaining direction all the way, people have these like valid criticisms that like you're just showing people what not to do. Like, here's how to get fired. Here's how to, and it's like, well, that both of these are true. So it's tricky to navigate that stuff down the middle. Do you tend to like try and shoot down the middle in one video, or it seems like you do it a little more like, this video is going to be entertaining and we're going to go a little wild, and then this one I'm not. Like, do you balance it that way?
I kind of decide based on the song or whatever it is that I'm actually doing, what I'm trying to show off. Like, if I'm trying to, if I'm playing like a high-end studio kit and I'm really just trying to like create something that's really like a beautiful work of art, or like I say beautiful work of art, someone's going to laugh at that coming out of my mouth. But every once in a while I do a song that doesn't have any drums, and I really, really think about the composition of the drums and what it might be like if there were drums on that track. And so like I've done that a few times where I'm really conscientious of the fact that like if I was going in the studio, yes, they chose not to have drums on this track, so obviously this would not be the choice to have on the track. But if they wanted to have drums on the track, here's an idea of what it might be. And I think Glycerin by Bush, I may be really just losing my mind here, but I'm pretty sure that was the most recent one I did that way, where I was like showcasing like that song doesn't have drums in it, but here I am playing drums to the track, what it might sound like.
Sure.
Or I did a Billie Eilish track that I thought was a lot of fun, and in those I'm trying to be more conscientious, but then
real simple drums in her music a lot of times,
right? Exactly.
Or virtually none sometimes.
And so I think I tend to skirt one line or the other, but overall as a player, I have definitely been more reserved, even in my more out there videos, just because I'm doing what I love. Like if I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play drums, I want to do it the way that I want to do it. And, not to say that I've ever played in ways that I don't like, but I definitely enjoy fitting the song more than I do just playing too much on purpose.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, man. I feel like this is something you've probably thought about more than an average content creator, but what level of responsibility do you feel to the drum community, knowing the amount of people that watch you, right? Because I know you're a thoughtful guy. I don't know, you don't approach any projects or anything like carelessly, but do you ever feel like somewhat of a like that big brother responsibility, that burden, in that like, I don't want to mess this up, because in some way you're responsible for forming the opinions of a very large group of up and coming drummers, right? Like, do you ever feel that responsibility, and how do you think through that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I definitely do. And that's one of the biggest things, especially regarding my channel, is because I have such a younger audience. Like, I mean, YouTube in itself is a younger audience. But like, there's a lot of drummers out there that they have demographics that are more like, college students. Well, not to say I definitely have those demographics, but I really, my channel has been built and has really expounded upon the idea that I am reaching newer drummers. And so like I really feel like I have to be careful with that, because I don't want newer drummers. I want newer drummers to watch my videos and be inspired to play, but I don't want newer drummers to watch my videos and not understand that I have a different side to my playing. You know, like
Yes.
I approach YouTube videos very differently than I approach the sessions that I'm on, than I approach the gigs that I'm on. And that's why I try and show things like that. Like every once in a while, I play drums with an orchestra and I'm playing like piano the entire time behind all these string instruments. And it's like, that's so different than what I do on my standard YouTube videos. And so if I can, I show every piece of what it is that I do. And I hope that they buy into me as a drummer and, you know, are interested in me learning more than just that one video they saw. And they'll see that progression. They'll see the difference in things. But I definitely, the amount of times parents or even kids and adults that have reached out to me and been like, you know, I started playing drums because of your videos, or my 5-year-old son watches you every time. I'm like, man, I gotta be so careful. Like if I'm because I have kids now, so like I understand
you hear
it
that
even
a different
more
way
than
now.
Like if my 4-year-old's on YouTube pretty often, and he's always, you know, like thinking about what it is that he's watching. I want to be something positive that they're watching, you know, and I want to be helpful, and I want to be encouraging, and I want to be inspiring. And so it's really like there is a lot to that, especially when it's not even just the content I produce, but it's also how do I create revenue out of it? How do I monetize this? How do I build a brand? How do I feed my family while doing these videos? And then there's also the added responsibility of what I'm actually putting out there.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with a few different people before, sometimes even with like strangers at NAMM sort of thing, where people learn that we're friends and they make a comment, something along the lines, it implies that they think the highest number of subscribers in the YouTube world should be directly tied into skill level. That if you're the number 1 or number 2 or number 3 YouTube drummer in the world, you should be the number 1, 2, or 3 drummer in the world. Yeah. That your subscriber count should be indicative of your skill level, sort of thing. And I've explained this to a few people, that the type of person you want in that number 1, number 2, number 3 spot of YouTube drummer with the most eyes on them, that you're the exact type of person that you want in there, because you want relatability, right? Like you want to the person in that position should be very responsible and know what they're doing at all times. They shouldn't be creating this gap of skill level where people think everything you play is like unattainable. Like, you know, we can name drummers like Matt Garska, for example. Like he's really fun to watch, but you should not show that to a first-year drummer. You're creating this distance of like, dude, it would take you 50 years to get here, you know?
That's what I think when I watch him.
Right. We still have that thought, like, who am I? What am I doing? But I tell people that like you are the man for that job, because your playing is very relatable and you care that you connect with people, that you don't create this distance of like, I'm this high-level, unbelievable pro drummer, that you're not interested in creating a separation. You're interested in closing the gap and saying, you can do this too. And for that reason, I've always tell people, like, Casey Cooper is the guy you want in that position. Like, you don't want Matt Garska in that position, not because he's not a nice guy, but it's because it creates this weird separation where people are intimidated rather than inspired, you know? So anyway, that's my big compliment for you, man. I think you're very well suited to be in that position, and someone who is, you know, 20 or 30 years more advanced from your playing level is not suited for that position, because they lose all that connectivity, you know? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that so much, because that's exactly what I want to do. That's exactly what I want to be, because I realize that, first off, I'm by no means the best drummer. I personally will never. Yeah, but like, you know, like you're an absolutely incredible player, and it would take me 5-10 years of solid practice to get to your level, you know. And I want people to understand that is like, it's okay to be lower on the scale of drummers and to work your way up. We all have somewhere to go, you know, and I want my videos to be that one of those first checkpoints. Like, I love it when people tell me, like, I watched your video and I went home and I played what you were playing. Yeah. Like, you know, Matt Garska plays something, like, there's no way some kid's gonna be like, hey, yeah, I went home and I just did what you did earlier today. And so, not to say, like, I have definitely, and we talked about it just a few minutes ago, like, I want to show improvement in my playing, and a lot of that comes more from a musical perspective than from a technical skills perspective. But at the same time, I want to be that guy that someone can look at and be like, hey, that's cool. That makes me want to play drums. I bet you I could do that in a month or a week or a day or a couple of years if you're a new drummer. You know?
Well, and it should also be mentioned too that, like, Technical ability really, it's very important. It might be the most important thing if you were getting into this world, that you can play drums decently well. Surely it's very important. But when the rubber meets the road, like your ability to act professional, like that might matter just as much. Like, I don't know about you, but I would gladly hire someone at a lower skill level who I like spending time with than the Matt Garska, for example, skill level, who's not fun to be in a room with. You know, like there's a whole lot of other things that would contribute to a successful career. And in the online world, your videography skills, your audio skills, your talking skills on camera, you know, your creativity off of the kit, like coming up with different video concepts and ideas. Like, it's this whole recipe of things that you need. And I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people don't look at it that way. They think getting really, really, really good at drums is the only thing you need to do. And that's, at least now in the last 10 years, we've learned that that's definitely not how it works. It's a weird, like, amalgam of skill sets that has to be blended together.
For sure. The only reason that my channel has the views and the subscribers that it does is because of the other skills and other things that I do. Like, if it were based on drum skills only, then, you know, I would have never been able to do what I've done. You know, and it's that's another thing that I preach. You know, I want people to understand that, like, yes, you can go to school to become, like, for performance. But if you really want to make it in the music industry, you should probably go to school for business. You should probably go to school for marketing. You should probably go to school for maybe video. I mean, that's a dangerous thing, like, in terms of, like, you know, you could learn a lot of this stuff you can learn on your own. You can pretty much learn anything on your own with YouTube and all that. But if you're going to go to school and you're going to get a degree, go to school and take private lessons in your instrument, but major in something more general. Major in business, major in management, major in marketing, or something where not only are you giving yourself some other ways to support yourself, because, like, it's not a problem to not be full time. Like, unless there's, you know, maybe it's a pride thing. Maybe as a, like, you want to be proud of yourself that you are a full time musician, and that's just what you can call yourself. But at the end of the day, if you're managing somebody's, like, your band on the side or somebody else's band on the side, and you're doing marketing for a brand, or you're doing marketing for someone, and you're getting paid that way while also getting to play music the way that you love, like, that's a win-win, man. I love video, I love marketing, I love all that, and there are many months where I'm doing things like that to create extra additional revenue, so that I don't have to just depend on my drumming, or I don't have to go on tour, or if I don't, because, like, I have a family, you know, and I don't want to be on tour all the time.
I was gonna say, I take it tours are relatively off the table for you, right? That's not an option.
I do, like, one-off, you know, appearances and, like, performances. Like, I do some international stuff where I'll go and I'll do, like, a clinic or two and then come back.
That's super fun.
Like, I love that stuff. I love meeting people. I love performing. But at the end of the day, like, my priorities have shifted greatly to the fact that my main priority is my family. And it's amazing that I get to do what I love while also being home with my family, you know?
Yeah, it's a weird, well, it's interesting. In we have strange jobs to describe to people. Well, let me ask you this. What's your answer if you meet a new person? They're like, what do you do, Casey? Like, how do you answer that? Because it's tricky, right? It's a very hard question to answer.
Well, typically someone introduces me and they're like, "Oh, hey, this is Casey, and he's, like, this YouTube guy, and he's got," and so, like, then you're already batting out of a weird hole, because people think that you're, like, that you're a millionaire, that because, you know, if someone says 2.5 million subscribers, or
even full-time YouTuber, people go, like, super famous right away.
He's definitely got a Lamborghini or something at home, and it's like, so then you're, like, trying to explain to them that, no, I don't just sit around and play drums all the time. Like, really, I call myself basically a marketing drummer, you know, like, or a content creator is my easiest way to just sum everything up, because I am the marketing, I am the editing, I am the video, I am the audio, I do all the different things to create my content and to create content for other businesses. And I mean, the other day I got the pleasure of helping to shoot J-Rod Sullivan. Are you familiar with him?
Oh yeah, sick drummer.
Insane drummer. He was doing a Vic Firth masterclass, and he asked me, he's like, "Hey, you got anybody to do video?" And my buddy Isaac and I went over there and we shot the masterclass for them.
Awesome.
And, like, so having those skills allowed me to do another thing in the music world and help out a buddy and put some coin in my pocket.
Sure.
And it was one of the greatest experiences because the dude's a phenomenal drummer, and I got to watch him do it live.
Super fun. Yeah.
So that's like, at the end of the day, creating content is my passion.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the easiest ways to explain it.
That is a good core example of what it actually is, right? We create content. What the content is will vary project to project. But yeah, I experienced the same thing with Meinl has been very, very generous in hooking me up with different gigs that are suited to my skill set, and they do this with all of their artists in really creative ways. But for me, anything that involved talking on camera and videography, so like mostly like product videos, that sort of thing. Over the years, they've set me up with many different gigs doing that. And it's funny because you don't get offered that gig unless you have that combination skill set of, can you film it well? Can you talk on camera? Can you write the script for the product? And I know you have all those skill sets as well, but it's a good example of why you want to be diversified, because even within the music industry, there's all these other strange little avenues that open up. Like filming a masterclass. That's a really cool one. Really cool.
Well, I mean, imagine because this is where the compilation of skills gets even deeper.